What's up, guys? It's Friday evening, so it's time to talk some West Virginia football. And no, your ears are not deceiving you. My voice sounds like crap right now. I don't know if I have laryngitis or what's going on, but ever since Wednesday, my voice has not sounded very good at all. So I'm going to go ahead and bring on Travis Kenobi. Me and him are going to mix it up and talk some West Virginia football. I'm actually really excited. Well, y'all know me. I'm always excited about West Virginia football, but the stuff that's been happening over the past 2 months has made me even more excited. So let's go ahead and bring Travis on. What's going on, bud?
Golden Blue dude, man, you weren't kidding. Your voice is a little shaky these days.
Yeah, it's shot. I don't even know what happened. I've already told my subscribers over on my regular YouTube channel. Wednesday. Hold on. I'm getting my days mixed up. I think it was Tuesday actually. It was either Tuesday or Wednesday. My son broke his arm at school. Had to spend the night in the hospital. He had surgery on Wednesday, but then I also lost my voice. It was it was the day from hell, man. It was the day from hell. But I'm recovering. Believe it or not, my voice actually sounds really, really good compared to how it sounded on Wednesday. That's how bad it was.
Well, glad I didn't hear you on Wednesday then.
Yeah, I sounded. Let's see. It was a mix between whispering and squeaking. That was my voice. I was either whispering or squeaking. There was no in between. Now I have kind of this raspy growl to my voice. So maybe the sound of golden bluted is just going to change altogether. I don't know. We'll see.
You're going through puberty, man.
Again? No, I don't want to go through that hell again, man.
No.
Don't wish that. Don't you wish that on me, Ricky Bobby, man? Don't do that. Uh, Anyways, all right. Let's start talking about some West Virginia football. I've explained many times that I have a bet with Talkus Pitt, one of my Pitt subscribers. I'm actually friends with him, and I made the bet. I think right after the 2021 college football season. So that was when, I was, yeah, I'm confident because I'm a West Virginia fan, but not like super confident. And then the transfer portal thing happened. We started losing players. Then I started straight up worrying, like, oh man, that was not a good idea. I don't know if we can pull this off. And 2 months later, we made some incredible moves, not just transfer portal, but some hires. What about your emotions? What kind of emotions did you go through in the past, we'll say 3-4 months?
Mostly it's been. I mean, you've talked to me enough. You know, I'm pretty level-headed, so it was sort of level through the storm. I didn't like the volume of people that we
Yeah.
lost, but it was level. And then the Graham Harrell hire came, and it was I started looking and saying, looks like Coach Brown like maybe learned something this past year and
Hmm.
is adapting and evolving as a young head coach should do. And I started getting pretty excited about what that offense might look like under him. And then you start hearing rumblings that I mean, as soon as Graham Harrell came in, it's like, well, he's had a few quarterbacks that he's coached that are in the transfer portal now. Which one are we going to get? And Slovis went to Pitt, so that was obviously out. And there's JT Daniels left, and he's in the portal. And start hearing there's a real possibility of that happening. And a couple days before it was announced, I heard from all my Georgia buddies down here in Atlanta that hey, you should like tune into this talk show or listen to the replay of this because everybody down here is saying JT Daniels is going to West Virginia. I mean, they knew before we did,
Yeah.
and that was pretty exciting. I liked the recruiting class, but a recruiting class can only help so quickly. I mean, you're only going to have a handful of those guys who really are going to be ready to step in right off the bat. And it's mostly the guys who came after fall semester for the winter.
Yes.
So, frankly, and I just, before we started, there were two things I did. One was do my sort of final transfer portal count. I updated my spreadsheet now that the May 1st deadline is come and gone. And then I sketched out like a sort of a depth chart, really, and looked at the talent that we have. And it looks good. I think some folks are going to be surprised. So if you want to sort of talk about that next, I'm happy to do it because I got it right in front of me.
Yes, absolutely. I would love to talk about that. I wanted to hit on something that you said earlier, though, about Neil Brown kind of learning his lesson and going out and getting an offensive coordinator. Um, I don't know if it's necessarily about him learning his lesson or finally realizing that the defense is good to go and now it's time to work on our offense. Because a lot of things, something that people don't realize about Neil Brown is he's very meticulous. He's very step by step. I don't think it's an accident that we got Graham Harrell when we got Graham Harrell. I think what Neil Brown was trying to do was he was trying to make sure that our defense was fixed, because when he got to West Virginia, I mean, we all know that the cupboard was bare, but specifically West Virginia was known for having a horrific defense. We were in shootouts week after week after week. If we didn't score 40 points, we were losing that football game. So I think his first mission when he got at West Virginia was fixing the daggum defense. And, the offense suffered because of that, but it was all part of the plan. It was all part of his steps. And I think now we're moving on to the next step, and that's, having an explosive offense. Even though we're not going to have to score 40 points a game, we will be capable of scoring 40 points a game. So we're going to have the luxury of a defense holding opponents to under 30 points on a consistent basis, and then an offense that's going to be able to score 35, 40 points on a consistent basis. That's what I'm seeing. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, he is meticulous and methodical. And in his first Big 12 conference, Big 12 Media Days conference, he spelled it out what was going to happen. He said, the Big 12 itself is evolving, and we want to be ahead of the curve on that. And the Big 12 is evolving towards a defensive mentality. You saw Iowa State comes out of nowhere and has a few seasons where they win between 8 and 10 games. And how did they make that jump? Well, Matt Campbell focused on defense and, sort of a 12 formation, run heavy offense that would throw the ball, but was all about ball control and sort of those short yard dingers. When they did pass, it kind of kept
Right.
people off balance with the double tight ends and using both of them. And sometimes the three tight ends. I mean, they've used that formation some too. So Brown said, look, we're going to, where we're going to head, the climb, if you will, and I know some West Virginia fans are sick of hearing the trust the climb deal, but the climb for him was, look, we're going to rebuild this thing, and we're going to rebuild it this way. We're going to rebuild it so that when we want to run the ball, we're going to run the ball. When we want to stop the ball, we're going to stop the ball. And now Graham Harrell comes in and he says, when we want to score the ball, we're going to score the ball. And we want to score the ball on every drive. Yep. And that's the mentality that we have. And that matches the defensive mentality that we've had for the past 3 years, which is we're not going to let them score. And if they do score, we're going to hold them to 3. We're not going to give up 7. And by the percentages, they've done a good job of doing that the past 3 years, regardless how many players, or the last 2 years rather, but regardless how many players they've had to replace, they've done it.
There's one thing that I think gets lost in the shuffle, and I'm glad you said what you said. Make it difficult for opponents to score, and if we do somehow allow a score, make it a field goal if possible. If we think back before Neil Brown, our defenses didn't even make opposing offenses work for their points. The defense we have now, like you were alluding to, stop them at all costs. But if we can't, let's hold them to 3. And if we can't hold them to 3, let's make them work for that touchdown. Let's make them grind and have to tough it out instead of, you know, a 60-yard touchdown or a 30-yard run. You know, big plays, you know, because that's what killed us under Dana Holgorsen, big plays on defense. And that's one thing that Neil Brown can, you know, kind of put a feather in his cap with. You know, we don't allow those big plays on defense. And big plays are gut shots. I mean, they can deflate a stadium. They can take the air out of the entire team. It can switch momentum. So at minimum, we have pretty much eliminated the big play for Big 12 offenses. So that's a major step that West Virginia has now accomplished, and that us as West Virginia fans, we can actually rely on that now. I can go into this season knowing that we don't have a defense. Oh man, how many big plays are they going to allow for this game or the next? You know, we don't have to worry about that. You know, our worry is more like, you know, can we hold them to under 20 because of offense? Well, now with Graham Harrell, we aren't going to have to hold the opponents to under 20. We might have to hold them to under 30 or 35, and we'll be fine. And our defense has shown that they can do that. That's why my win total has gone much higher. I'm in the 9-10 win category because our defense isn't going to have to hold opponents to under 25 points to win a football game. You look at, you know, how many points we average per game. I think it was like between 25 and 27. That's ridiculous. You're asking your defense to be elite every stinking game, which they were very, very good every stinking game, but they weren't elite. And this year they're going to be asked just to be good. And I think they're going to be better than just good. I think they're going to be what they've been, and that's very, very good, possibly elite.
Yeah, you know, I think that's right. And you know, I was gonna start traditionally with the offensive depth chart, but I'll start on defense for the reason that you just said. And one thing before I get into that is that, you like, the last couple of falls, we've heard Neil Brown say our good is pretty good, but our bad is really bad, and we got to
Yep.
make the bad better. And one way he
Bring
made
up
the
the
bad better
basement.
was defense. When the defense, I mean, the defense still gives up some big plays. I mean, the game of football and the nature of it is that somebody's going to get open sometimes. Somebody's going to break a big run sometimes. It's not perfect. And even going into the national championship, both Nick Saban and Kirby Smart said, you know, these are good college football players. They're going to execute, and some people are going to miss assignments, and things are going to happen. And it's really about being, you know, overcoming that adversity when it happens, and the next play, not letting the same mistake happen twice. Neil Brown has done a great job, and his defenses have done a great job, no matter who they've plugged in. And this year, you know, as I start going down this list, I think you're going to see we lost some guys, but the players that we're plugging in are also some guys. And, you know, just start with the defensive line. I mean, we're going to have Dante Stills back for another year. You know, everybody knows him. 4-star recruit out of high school, has played every like
Which was actually a surprise. A lot of people outside the West Virginia fan base might not realize, but we were not expecting Dante Stills to come back.
No, we were not. It was a very pleasant surprise, of course.
Yes.
But, you know, I guess he saw some things that he wanted to work on to sort of take his game to the next level and up his draft stock. And, you know, he's back doing it for the home team. And, you know, so here he is, you know, 5th year starter, 4-star guy, has played like a blue chip. And I think he's going to play with a big chip on his shoulder this year again.
Yep.
In the middle, you've got, you know, Jordan Jefferson is probably the number 1 with some guys behind him. He's got plenty of experience. He can swallow people up. Then you've got Taj Alston on the other side is probably the other starter. And he is, you know, when he's been healthy, he's been a backfield monster. He gets there. Just a great pass rushing edge defender. You know, for the The linebacker hybrid position that we have, Jared Bartlett is probably your starter, and he looked really good in the spring game. He had a lot of good moments the last 2 years, but wasn't consistent. I expect going into his third season, he's going to be a lot more consistent, and we're going to
He has
benefit.
explosive capabilities for sure.
Absolutely. And then, at linebacker, we've got Lance Dixon, 5-star guy. He's going to start this year. He's going to show you what he is. He's going to show you why he was a 5-star recruit, why 247 Sports had him as a top 10 in the nation recruit.
Yep.
Chandler Semedo was a loss, but I don't think we're going to miss him, because what Josh Chandler Semedo actually did was he was a beast at being around the ball 4 or 5 yards after the line of scrimmage. He racked up all of his tackles. I mean, 75, 80% of his tackles were 4 or 5 yards after the play.
So he was more of a stop the bleeding type of tackler.
Yeah. And he wasn't, his problem was he's not super fast. I mean, he's got good instincts. He's got a good nose for the ball. He has good qualities. But
I heard he was one of the biggest issues when it came to the locker room, because even there's some players that are on the team this year that said when they came into the locker room last year, it was cliquish, and he was one of those players that created a click off to the side. And now that all these transfers have hit the portal, it's more of a unified front. So I think we'll see more of a unified team here. To add to your point.
That's an important point, and it's one of the things that I've liked about the posts from the players that are here, and the things that they put on their social media. It's not sort of this, drama queen. I mean, remember Tyke Smith would always drop those tweets that are like, geez, what like some emo kid? Like what's going on here? And how are we supposed to read this? Just wanted
kind of like what Caleb Williams is doing right now at USC.
Yeah, a little bit, but his replacement, Lee Kapogba, was a 4-star guy, and he was a 4-star guy raw out of high school, only having played a year and a half of organized football.
That's insane.
He had all the athletic potential in the world. We courted him hard. Syracuse ended up with him. He didn't play a lot of snaps for Syracuse, but he was extremely productive in the snaps that he did play. I think he was in on the play something like 32% of the time.
Wow. That's knowing where your spot is right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's like a prototypical Mike linebacker, but he's fast and he's long and he's lengthy. And the things that Chandler Semedo was missing, I think Kapogba has it. So I think we got an upgrade there.
Well, okay. So to add to your point, Neil Brown has said in the past, West Virginia can't recruit like Oklahoma, Alabama, Clemson, USC, all those programs that get 5-star after 5-star after 5-star. So what does Neil Brown focus on when he does recruit?
He wants versatile guys that are rangy and fast.
That's it right there. And that's exactly what Lee is.
And again, I mean, I've said this before on some of our talks, but, about 2.5, 3 weeks before we learned that Chandler Semedo was in the portal, we started hearing that Kapogba was taking over the room in the weight room.
The alpha.
And we heard that Chandler Semedo was unhappy with it. And then he starts with his tweets about who's throwing me money, that sort of stuff.
Yep.
And then he leaves. And then it's like, well, you heard that maybe Kapogba is a better player. Maybe Kapogba is a better leader, which is what you want in your Mike linebacker. That is the leader of the defense. He's the guy barking things out. So in more ways than one, we've got an upgrade. We've got a better teammate, we've got a better leader, and we've got a better athlete. And he doesn't count as a returning starter on the team, but man, I think his production is going to be
upgrade.
And then at cornerback, we've talked about Fortune and how he was. I mean, people talk about that, and it's like, well, I mean, look at
They
Like,
focused on the term starter too much. The dude got injured, got beat for his position, and couldn't win it back in the offseason. That's what happened.
yeah, I mean, you can like or dislike Pro Football Focus, but generally they do a pretty good job at grading a player's performance. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that the player is that good or that bad. It means this is what he actually did on the field, which is what matters. And Fortune was the third lowest graded defender on our team last year, and Charles Woods was the third highest. That's his replacement. Well, you can't convince me. There's nothing you could do to convince me that we have not significantly upgraded his cornerback spot by retaining Charles Woods, who is ball hungry, and he's going to cause 5 to 7 turnovers this year without.
He's aggressive. Yeah.
On the other side, there's going to be a little bit of a battle, but I think the guy who's going to end up getting it is Andrew Wilson Lamp, another 4-star guy out of high school. He got beat a couple of times in the spring game, but it wasn't for lack of position. Like Nick Troy Fortune, for example, got beat for lack of position. Sometimes Daryl Porter, as athletic as he was, got beat for lack of position.
He gambled too much. He was very hit and miss.
Wilson Lamp was always in the play. He got beat on some tough one-on-ones, but he was right there. I mean, a couple inches over with his hand, and he tips the ball. But he's step for step with his receiver. I think he's the guy, and I think he's going to end up being pretty good. That being said, the pair of losses I hate most on the defense are Porter and Jackie Matthews, because it does leave us shallow at cornerback. And it would be preferable to have a returning starter there on the other side too. Charles Woods, you can consider a returning starter because he started more than half the season last year.
Yeah, I see Jamie's comment where we got Tariq Austin through the transfer portal. He's going to help the defense, but he's going to be more of a depth. We really needed some extra depth at the linebacker position, and so we directly addressed that. I'm not saying that he's a bad player or anything like that, but he is what we need him to be, and that's some depth at the linebacker position. He's not really a game changer or, holy crap, I can't believe we got that guy. He helps West Virginia because we needed him because he's a depth guy.
Yeah, he's going to rotate in for some snaps for sure. And if Lance Dixon plays the way that I think he will this year, Austin Cave's biggest role is as a starter next year.
Yes.
Or pushing for a starter next year, taking over Dixon's spot. Austin Cave is pretty athletic. I liked his film. I hated that we lost him to Miami. It was a really close recruiting battle.
I remember that too.
I don't like that we ended up trading Messidor for him. I think.
Yeah, and a lot of people are like, well, he didn't want us the first go around, and it looks like he wasn't going to get used at Miami. West Virginia uses a completely different defense than Miami. So you're going to see some guys that other teams, hardly use or use very little, whatever. And they come to West Virginia and they're going to be used a lot more because they fit into the defense that we use. And I think that's going to be the case with Austin Cave. I mean, we recruited him right off the bat. Sucks he chose Miami, but that shows you that we knew the first time that he would fit into our defense, and he's still going to fit into our defense.
Yeah, it just took him a while to realize it. That's fine.
Exactly.
He's here now. I don't care.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters.
And the guys who left, they're not here now. All of it is water under the bridge, right?
Yep. Gotta stop holding grudges.
So we move on. The spot on the team that is the toughest to predict is safety. I think we're going to end up we are going to end up adding another person in the secondary via the transfer portal, and I don't know if it'll be a cornerback or a safety, or maybe both.
What do you think about this? Do you think that we could end up going to more of a one deep safety and use Marcus Floyd as kind of the floater in floating kind of in between that linebacker safety position.
He very well
Because
could.
he's good side to side. He's got very quick side to side motion.
I mean, he played cornerback last year, but as I understand it, the staff specifically recruited him because of versatility and because he could be a deep cover safety.
Right.
So I think that one of the safety spots, in fact, I have kind of penciled in, Cox or Floyd. One of those two is going to take one of those spots, and then probably Aubrey Burks gets another. And I think as long as he comes along, like I think he will, it may not be game 1, but game 4 or 5, Hershey McLaurin, another 4-star, is going to start at the other safety spot.
What about the chances of seeing Cox and Floyd back there? I know it's not very high, but I think it's possible.
I mean, it depends. I mean, they run different sets, right? I mean, sometimes sometimes they're really running, 5 true defensive backs instead of 4 in a hybrid.
Yep.
I think you could definitely see that. I mean, you could see Floyd as sort of a nickelback and still run 3 safeties.
Yep.
With one being a hybrid. So absolutely, we could see all that happen. And I don't want to count out, some of the freshmen either. I mean, St. McLeod. I mean, he's recovering from the injury, but if I'm told that all recovery, all systems go, things are well. He showed some really good skills last year. The only reason I don't have him penciled into the depth chart as a starter is because of the injury. I mean, you just don't know if he's going to be back for game 1 and sort of in game shape because of what he's on.
You know how far along he is in his rehab?
I don't. All I've heard, from Coach Brown really is what everybody else has heard, which is he's doing well. He's in high spirits. He's recovering.
Okay.
Expecting him to fall.
Yeah, I haven't heard much on him, so I was wondering if you knew a little bit more.
Yeah. But, we've got former walk-on Malachi Ruffin is going to take some snaps too. He's shown the ability to do it, not on an every down basis, but when he's needed, he's there. And you need guys like that. I mean, you need guys that are like, look, I'm only going to play 7 snaps a game, but I'm going to give it my all those 7 snaps. And
exactly.
At the end of the day, I think any coach will tell you that's the heart and soul of the team right there.
Because they're gonna work to get more snaps. They're gonna make every snap count.
Right. And then we've got Caleb Coleman and Davis Mallinger as well. We have not seen much of them yet, but I think we will. And then, one of my favorite recruits in the class was Christian Stokes.
Yes.
I mean, he is as hard hitting a safety as we've seen since Carl Joseph, and that's saying something because Kaiser White was a hard hitter too.
Who reminds me of? He reminds me of that Georgia safety that we played in the 2006 Sugar Bowl, Greg Blue. Remember him? That's who he reminds me of. He reminds me of Greg Blue.
Yeah, I could see that. But, again, freshman, so how quickly he comes along, how quickly he develops, how quickly he takes to the program.
Yeah.
All questions that are unanswered yet. But other than safety, and I think we've got guys that are going to rotate, we just don't know exactly who it's going to be that take those 3 spots. I really like our defense a lot, and I'm just not as worried about it as other folks. I just saw today that they gave us, Vegas odds. They put our over under at 5.5 wins, and I told people, I said take that over and don't even look back.
Easy. I would thought they would at least have it at 6.5, like at minimum 6.5.
Yeah. And we, Vegas has not always been right about us. In fact, most of the time, Vegas is wrong about us, underestimating. So I like.
But see, they make the odds based on where they think they're going to make money. They know that, most people are low on West Virginia, so they're going to make money off of that. So it is what it is. It's making money off of public perception. So there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, but I like where the starters are, but I equally like where the backups are. I mean, guys like Sean Martin, Zakai Lawton, you know, um, we still have X Low. How can you forget about him? He started 25 games.
And Lawton, people forget that Cincinnati had an amazing defense last year. It was actually one of their strengths. I don't think Zakai Lawton is getting talked about enough. I think that was a good pickup for West Virginia.
Yeah, I mean, Brown has said, everybody on the defensive staff and Coach Brown have all said, I'm surprised at how far along Lawton is. I kind of thought with the minimal snaps he played at Cincinnati that, like, we were getting still a little bit of a project. And I don't think that's the case. I think Lawton is going to play. He's going to play immediately. It's not going to be 30 snaps, but it might be 15.
And that shows you how good Cincinnati's coaching staff is. So even though he wasn't a regular starter, he was still getting coached up really, really well.
Yeah. And then young man we just picked up from Georgia Tech is going to eat some snaps too.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Lockhart.
Middle. He's a big boy. He'll spell Jordan Jefferson, who I understand has a different sort of attitude this year.
Yes.
And then we haven't talked about our European friend, Mr. Vesterinen.
Yep.
He played well in the snaps he had, especially towards the end of the season. So we've got depth.
I forgot about him, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but I look back at the film and like the snaps he played in, he swallowed people up. He wasn't in on the play. He did his job. He swallowed. And at linebacker, like I said, there's X Low. We've got Jairo Favaris. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. But he another European kid that we got that started as sort of a hybrid safety and is sort of becoming a hybrid linebacker. And they said that he's played really well this year, suffered through some injury last year. And then a couple of freshmen in Lathan and Collins are gonna challenge for some snaps. So I like depth there. And I don't, even though it'd be nice to maybe have a few more bodies, I don't hate the depth at cornerback either with Spells, Ben Wahad, and Woodby.
That's who I was thinking about. I mean, I'm excited because I truly believe West Virginia is going to take a massive step forward this year, and the future of West Virginia is looking really stinking good. You basically took the words out of my mouth with Spells and Ben Wahad, and then Kenneth Hill in the chat talking about Pollinday. All those guys, hey, they're the future of West Virginia, and they're pretty stinking good. So, even though we might not see a lot, we will see some of them this year, but we might not see a lot of them because I don't think they're going to be stars. Although Jacoby Spells, you never know with him. That dude's he's legit. Same thing with Ben Wahad. But in years to come, we will remember those names.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that I always go back to, my son plays football for Milton High School, which has in the last 5 years, 6, 7 years, has been a powerhouse 7A football team. And I've heard from and talked to some coaches that have seen most of the programs in Georgia play. And and talking to these guys, I'm like, who are the best guys on defense? And Ben Wahad's name actually came up a lot. And I'm like, whoa, all right, so what's good about Ben Wahad? What do y'all think? You see him, you coach against him, you scheme. And keep in mind, like Ben Wahad played in Gwinnett County, in the same county that Travis Hunter, the number 1 overall recruit, played in.
Yep.
And Travis Hunter played wide receiver and cornerback, but he was recruited primarily as a cornerback.
Yep.
and a Deion Sanders type of cornerback. That's kind of why he went to Deion Sanders' program. Lured him there as sort of that utility guy. But so keeping that in mind, I had coaches tell me that they believe Mumu bin Wahad was the best cover corner in the entire state of Georgia the last 2 years.
Have you ever heard of Coach Hayes on YouTube? He has a YouTube channel. Basically, what he does is he looks at highly rated recruits, breaks down their film. Like, he's a former coach, he knows what to look for. He breaks down film, explains tendencies, failures, all that stuff. And Ben Wahad popped up on one of his videos, so I watched his video. And so whenever you're watching a Coach Hayes video, you're watching a raw reaction. He hasn't already watched the film and rehearsed his reactions or what he's going to say. He's watching it in real time. He's reacting in real time. And the way he reacted to Ben Wahad, number one, he is floored that he was only rated as a 3-star. He said Ben Wahad is a borderline 5-star. That's how good he is. He said that's one of the best cover cornerbacks he's seen coming out of high school in a very, very long time. His recovery speed is some of the best you'll see come out of any high school. His athleticism is top notch. So even a guy that I watch quite often in Coach Hayes, who's that's what he does for a living, is break down film, super, super high on Ben Wahad, and was actually impressed that West Virginia got him.
Yeah, well, and we had to fight off some late suitors too to retain him. But yeah, I've seen Coach Hayes. I have not seen his Ben Wahad video, but I agree with
check it out.
You just said.
High praise.
In my own scouting profile, what I wrote about Ben Wahad is that, look, like any, particularly a high school cornerback, but like any cornerback, sometimes they get beat. Sometimes they take the wrong step. The receiver is trying his hardest to juke him, to get him off the scent. And one of the things that impressed me most about Ben Wahad was the recovery. You could see sometimes he made a mistake, but he didn't let that mistake beat him. It was really kind of amazing to watch. And so I think I really wouldn't be surprised if Ben Wahad takes quite a few snaps towards the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
But he is definitely the future of the position. And Charles Woods, this is last year, so someone's got to take over that spot. Another
thing that Ben Wahad is going to do is create turnovers, because something that people don't realize is whenever you have recovery speed like that, you're really good at surprising people. So let's say, he does get beat, wide receiver does beat him. His recovery speed, he can, get back to him real quick. And, that wide receiver is not expecting that because he wasn't expecting that closing speed. So I think he'll be able to force fumbles. I'm not even talking about interceptions. I'm talking about fumbles. Look out for Ben Wahad forcing fumbles because of that closing speed, surprising wide receivers. It happens all the time. It happens all the time when those quarterbacks have closing speed like that. That's what causes those big time fumbles for wide receivers. They're just not expecting that presence as soon as it gets there.
Yeah, I agree. So like in whole, in sum, I mean, what I think our defense is next year is about as good as our defense last year. I don't think it's quite as good as our defense 2 years ago, which was, top 20 in the country. It could be, it has the potential to, but I think it's every bit a top 30, 35 unit, and it's only going to be giving up, 24, 25 points a game.
The only thing that's separating us from that elite status in 2020 is turnovers. That's it. Our defense is good at stopping people. Our points we allow per game is excellent. Passing yards, pretty good. Rushing yards, really good. We're just not creating as many turnovers as we did in 2020. And that's crazy to say because 2020 was a shortened season. But percentage-wise, we're not creating those turnovers. So if we can get those guys to create those turnovers, we will have that elite defense. That's what I keep trying to explain to people. Our defense hasn't fallen off. It's not like 2020 is something that we can never get to again. It was because of those turnovers. If we can get our guys to commit to those extra little steps that lead to turnovers, we'll be right there. We're not far from it.
Well, and one of the things that has the potential to make the defense even better, and I don't know if it will be. I'm not willing to make that prediction quite yet. But one of the things that could make it even better than 2020 is the fact that we have a damn offense.
Yep.
I mean, I have not looked yet. I should have, and I'd like to see if I'm right. But my memory of last season is that we gave up by a fairly wide margin the most amount of points in the fourth quarter of games last year.
Yep.
Out of any other quarter. And why? Did the defense get tired? Because the defense wasn't well trained? No, the defense got tired, but not because it wasn't well trained, because it was staving off offensive mistakes and turnovers that our offense created and bad field position that our special teams couldn't give us.
How many times did we watch a game last year where, crap, our offense turned the ball over, defense saves the day. Turnaround, offense does it again. There's only so many times that your defense can save you if your offense keeps turning the ball over or going 3 and out over and over and over. You cannot expect your defense to go out there and mop up mistakes every stinking, snap.
Yeah. And it's not just like the fatigue aspect of it, like they're spending more time on the field than they should. It's mental and it's like it's deflating. Like, man, I came out here fired up and I'm doing all this, and I turned the ball over and gave the ball to the offense at the 37-yard line, and they didn't even get 3 points out of it.
Exactly.
Because they didn't call a timeout, or they had already used their timeouts not getting the play in, so there's a delay of game penalty and then a holding, and then we're back at the 50. I mean, how many times did that? I mean, it feels like that was like a repeating, that's
it looked like it was part of the game plan. It happened so much.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I don't know why it was, but why it would be, but it looked like it. But the offense this year.
Yeah, give us the roster for the offense.
I like
Let's do this.
I mean, at quarterback, he's going to have to earn it. I don't think they're going to just give it to him, but he is going to earn it. And JT Daniels is going to be the starter day one, 5-star quarterback, and he's going to play like a 5-star quarterback. He's going to play like he has been in the last 2.5 years, completing 75% of his passes for 9 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns per interception. That's the JT Daniels we're going to get.
And let me say this: a lot of West Virginia fans are kind of a little nervous because 2 of our first 4 games on the road to Pitt, on the road to Virginia Tech. Y'all do realize that JT Daniels played in the SEC, and road games in the SEC, man, they ain't no joke. There's nothing like an SEC road game. So don't worry about the nerves or the professionalism of JT Daniels going into Heinz Field, especially Heinz Field. Definitely don't worry about that. I mean, there's going to be more West Virginia fans than Pitt fans. But especially the Virginia Tech, Inner Sandman, Thursday night, the Hokie faithful. He's seen it all. They
might be 0-2 heading into that game. Their fans are going to be excited.
Exactly. Virginia Tech is going to be a bad team next year. Bad.
So yeah, and another thing, people talk about his health and whatnot, and you've talked about the recovery facilities and how we do that better than most schools do, and that's very true. But if he does, if it's just a thing and there's a JT Daniels curse and he gets hurt again, do you hate the track record of his replacements?
I do not. But I will say this. I don't think that's going to happen at West Virginia. Here's the reason. If you look at Georgia's track record for injuries, it is not good at all. In fact, Tyke Smith, as soon as he transfers over to Georgia, he gets injured. So I think there's some conditioning issues or something they're not doing quite right over there at Georgia when it comes to injuries. Now, of course, they had that elite defense, won a national championship, so they're doing a lot right as well. But there's way too many injuries going on over there at Georgia. If you transition and look at West Virginia, we're actually doing something right when it comes to injuries. Under Neil Brown, West Virginia just, we haven't seen all that many injuries. So if they're, and I guarantee you that's one thing that JT Daniels looked at when he was shopping for a university. Yes, Graham Harrell probably locked it down, but hey, how many people get injured over here? Because, I know what's going on over here, what's going on over there. So I'm sure that caught his eye. And I expect him to stay healthy this year. I really, really do. I'm not trying to, act like a homer or anything else or anything like that. But there's one thing about West Virginia right now, and that's we keep our players pretty healthy for the most part.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I certainly I don't think that he is going to get injured. I'm just saying for the fans that are like, oh my God, he's
Right.
doomed. He's cursed. He's gonna get injured because that's what happens to him every year. Well, look, we saw Goose Crowder have a really good spring game.
Yep.
And
really good.
Graham Harrell is like a magician when it comes to first-time starting quarterbacks, and he's a magician when it comes to quarterbacks who replace injured starters. I mean, the odds are in our favor in that room, but I don't think they need to be because the odds are JT Daniels, 5-star quarterback, leading this Graham Harrell high-octane offense. I don't have any worries about it.
Mm-hmm.
At running back, we've got Tony Mathis as the presumptive sort of every down starter with Lynn J. Dixon coming in. We're going to play a lot of 2 running back sets because Lynn J. Dixon can also catch the ball. Dixon's got a lot of shift and speed to him. We're going to see him in the red zone. And then Justin Johnson, Jalen Anderson, 2 4-stars right behind him. We're set at running back. We're all good there.
I think another thing that we saw in the spring game was that offensive line getting a 2 or 3 yard push on the defensive line. So what we're going to see this year, instead of our running backs having to fight to find a hole, they're going to be gifted 2 or 3 yards right off the bat, and then we'll have a hole. So our guys, I'm telling y'all right now, our running game this year might actually be better than our passing game. And that's not saying that our passing game is going to be bad. Our passing game is going to be really good, especially with Graham Harrell. But with that push that offensive line's getting, we might have one of the best running games in the nation, definitely in the Big 12.
Yeah, no, we very well could. And I'll save the line for last or second. Well, actually, I'll do tight end. Michael Laughlin returns again.
Yep.
And we're gonna run some 2 tight end sets, and Paledny, the transfer we got, has actually upped his passing game under this staff, or his receiving game under this staff rather. And he's a really good blocking tight end, always has been. And then we've got a full crowded room behind him, but those are the 2 guys there, both known quantities. I think the tight end will be a lot more involved in the passing game than it has been in the last 3 years. And I know some fans personally who have been frustrated that where's the tight end? How come we never use the tight end? Why are we even recruiting a tight end? We never use him.
I think Corbin Page is going to be a name too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Corbin Page is coming. But, I mean, you look at the roster, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tight ends on scholarship. We don't have 6 tight ends on scholarship for no effing reason.
Yeah, just to take up space.
We're going to use them. And DeCarlo Donaldson might be a name you hear too. That guy is pretty versatile. We could run a 3 tight end set where he looks like a tight end and moves out to the slot, catches the ball 3 yards off the line, and balls over some people to get 10. I mean,
that would be a great motion play, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we really will. If he picks up the offense fast enough, we might see it. And another guy I like, but we haven't heard much about him, and some people might forget about him, but Victor Wickstrom
Oh,
You looked at pictures from him in fall camp last year, and he just looked like a dude. I mean, big, strong, like 245 chiseled.
how tall is that dude? Like
Which
6'5", 6'6"?
4'6'5", something like that.
Yeah.
It's big dude. So we've got some guys there. At wide receiver, I think we have more guys than fans think. I mean, they saw like the group of people leave, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is terrible," because we lost 4 receivers to the portal. The only one I care about is Winston Wright.
Yes.
The other 3 had some good games, but they were inconsistent, and they crowded the room too much.
Mm-hmm.
They were
I think the term that was being used too much as well was West Virginia lost their leading receiver. Okay, yeah, technically he was our leading receiver by like 10 yards, but still he only had like a little over 600 receiving yards, and there was like 4 or 5 guys right there with him above 600 yards receiving. So yeah, technically he was the leading receiver, but honestly, I think what happened with West Virginia offseason was addition through subtraction. I think, and we've talked about this before, I don't think the wide receivers got into their groove. Coaches were more worried about, getting all their guys touches because we had a lot of we had a lot of pretty good wide receivers. Problem was not enough snaps to get as many snaps as every wide receiver wants. So I think we're actually in a better position than what we were last year. Didn't like losing Winston Wright. I actually liked him more in the special teams than at the wide receiver, but he had a couple of muff punts and it kind of messed with his head. So even that's not as bad. So I'm good with where our wide receiver core is right now.
Yeah. Well, and the 3 starters, put this in permanent marker. Don't pencil it in, but it's Sam James, it's Bryce Ford Wheaton, and it's Caden Prather.
Yep.
And of the 3, Sam James has shown the most flashes, except for the drops that he had 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
But last year, people still say, "Has Sam James learned to catch the ball at all?" And I'm like, did you guys watch the football games last year? Or did you look at the box score?
I think with him, it's a mental thing. And
he only dropped 2 passes last year, though.
Yes.
Last year, he improved so significantly. And I think that we get that Sam James next year, but in a high-octane offense where he's going to catch 65, 70 balls for 1,000, 1,100 yards.
I think that was more on Nagy not trusting him as much because, the year before, Sam James did drop a lot of balls. Last year, not so much, but Nagy he didn't, for whatever reason, he didn't trust him as much, I guess because of the year before. So, if he gets his targets, in the 80, 90 range, then yeah, he's going to have a crap ton of catches because he's shown last year that he has more confidence. And I think being around Prather, is also going to help elevate his game because it's not going to be all on him. I mean, going into what was it, 2020, there was a lot of pressure on Sam James. He was supposed to be the man, and he came out dropping balls, and he just never recovered. Last year, he didn't necessarily have to be the man, and we saw him kind of relax and get into his role. And I think that's going to happen this year. He's not going to have to be the man. He's going to have Prather and others significantly helping with the workload, and he's just going to do his thing.
Yeah, I'm calling it right now. You heard it here first. We're going to have 2 1,000-yard receivers, and then we're going to have another 800-yard receiver. And your guess is as good as mine as to which one is which. I tend to think that James and Prather are probably 1 and 2 on that list, and Ford Wheaton is just behind them.
Yep.
I think that Prather ends up being the best receiver on the team by yards per catch and total.
Reading my mind.
But
I mean, even Stedman Bailey's working with the dude. I mean, people are seeing potential in this guy. Like his ability to high point a ball is ridiculous. JT Daniels or whoever's back there throwing the football, all they're going to have to do is throw a lob, and he's going to be able to high point that thing and bring it down. I don't want to compare him to Randy Moss because Randy Moss was a freak, but it's going to be Moss esque, I should say.
Yeah, and behind them we have Malashevich, and
He had a good spring.
he did, and then. Why am I blanking on the name? Because he had such a good spring game. The guy
Fox, Preston Fox.
Yeah. I mean, Fox is not. He's not gonna. They're not gonna rely on him heavily during games. But
I do think Fox is going to play his butt off to prove a point.
yeah, he's gonna
have a chip on his shoulder. Not a mad chip, but I'm going to prove to the coach they made the right decision by giving me a scholarship kind of chip.
Yeah, and I think he's going to probably play every down on special teams. I would bet, except for punt protection and field goals. He's not going to be on those, but on the returns and the kickoff coverage, he's going to be on those teams.
I think Bryce Ford Wheaton should be our return man. I think he's I do think Bryce Ford Wheaton is our fastest receiver. So I'd like to see him back there fielding the punts in the kickoffs.
I think the coaching staff might have a surprise for us on that front. I think one of these freshmen, maybe Spells, might.
I'm thinking Spells or maybe Ben One Hod has good closing speed. Does that translate into return speed?
Spells film and Stokes film both showed some pretty good returns. So I could see one of those two competing for it. I'm not going to count them out just yet. And as far as depth at receiver, it's really not as bad as I thought it was because Jeremiah Aaron should have been a 4-star recruit.
Yeah, and fans should not compare this year's depth to last year's depth because honestly, we had too many receivers last year. That receiving core that you saw last year, that was too many. So I'm actually glad that the depth has been whittled down a bit.
And Jarrell Williams, man, he's going to be a baller. I'm just saying.
Oh man, yes.
So last but not least, we've got our offensive line, and for the first time in as long as I can remember, the West Virginia Mountaineers return all 5 starters in the offensive line.
People do not realize how important that is. Out of all the position groups, chemistry is the most important for the offensive line.
And guess what? 4 out of those 5 have more than 1,000 snaps.
And guess what? Nestor doesn't have a cast this year.
Nope, not yet. Well, knock on wood. But yeah. You saw that chemistry, you saw that experience, you saw that fire. That like these guys, they're out to prove something this year, just like they were in the second half of last season. People look at it as a seasonal thing, and they look at the grades, and they're like, the whole season they were bad. That's not true. After the Baylor game, they were much better.
After the bye week, whatever the coaches did to them in the bye week, man, they got progressively better after the bye week.
Yeah, I agree. And the film shows it. I mean, you could go rewatch the season and see that offensive line did night and day. They were just night and day between, after that bye week, after that Baylor just shellacking that we took.
Even
the Oklahoma State game was tough.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Even the Oklahoma State, but people got to realize Oklahoma State had a top 5 defensive line in the nation last year. You can't really, fault that on our offensive line. I think they actually held pretty well against that ridiculous defensive line that Oklahoma State had.
By the way, another thing that I'm going to call early is that, we're like, what, in the past 17 games against teams from Oklahoma, we have not won one. We're going to win 2 this year. We're going to beat both Oklahoma and Oklahoma State this year. Calling it now.
I think we'll definitely beat Oklahoma, and it depends on how healthy we are going into that Oklahoma State. If we're healthy going into that last game, then I think we can win it. But if we're kind of banged up, which you never know, end of the year, last game on the road, you never know. I would give it. It'll depend on health. If we're banged up, then I would probably give it to Oklahoma State because they're way too physical for you to have a banged up team go into Stillwater and beat them.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how they adjust to the loss of their defensive coordinator, and
That's a big deal.
And the graduations and transfers have hurt them on the defensive side of the ball.
What was his name? Greg Knowles?
Yeah. And how many of those dudes got drafted? It was like three or four, I think.
Yeah, I think it was 4. Yeah, that's true.
So listen, first year in a long time, we're returning all 5 starters. First year in a long time that we have 4 starters with, over 1,000 snaps. And by the way, 3 of them are 1,500 or more pretty much. That stuff really matters because 1,500 snaps is basically the equivalent of a junior.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've got 3 junior. I mean, and in the depth chart too. You have 3 juniors. And Milam is just a sophomore, but man,
he's a freak.
We saw him grow up last year in ways that you don't normally see. An offensive lineman does not normally improve during the course of the season just because of what it takes mentally and physically to be an offensive lineman every down.
There's a reason why he was a borderline 5-star.
He proved it. In fact, he was a 5-star.
They just ran out of stars. People don't realize they only have, how many is it? Like 30? They can only give like 35 stars out every recruiting cycle. Wyatt Millam was a 5-star, guys. Make no mistake about it. He was a 5-star. They just were out of the 5-star labels when they got to him.
Well, he started out as he was a 5-star in the initial rankings, but that was when they had only ranked, only scouted like 700 of the 3,000 players. Then they started scouting more players, and
they start splitting hairs. Who do we want in? Who do we want out? Wyatt Millam's a 5-star, guys. I'm telling you right now, he is.
Well, and I dare anyone to ask Wolfman what he thinks. Wolfman says that dude is definitely a 5-star player without any doubt in my mind. And, Wolfman would know.
And honestly, it's still possible for his rating to get bumped up to a 5-star. Now, his recruiting label out of high school will be forever known as a 4-star. But, they can adjust those rankings. That's why you see transfers. One year they're a 3-star and they transfer and they're a 5-star. Like, what? Wait a minute. He was a 3-star. Now he's a 5-star. Well, it's because, they pay attention and see what's going on as they progress. I'm telling you, and I called this whenever we recruited him. I said, number 1, he's too close to being a 5-star to not do it. And number 2, he's too good. He will be flipped to a 5-star if he hasn't already. I haven't been keeping up with his rankings. He might already be, to be honest with you. He might already be.
And then, in the middle, Zach Frazier. And another thing that's really going to help is Milam switching over to left tackle and Yates bringing over, heading over to the right tackle spot. You want your strongest offensive lineman to be on the left side.
Yep.
Because that's the blind side. That's what you're protecting.
Unless you have a lefty for a quarterback.
Yeah. And, if Nico were going to be the starter, I would say that's a mistake putting Milam over on left. But
right.
I think they knew JT Daniels was going to be our quarterback. I think they were pretty confident in it long before it actually happened.
That kind of tells you, well, even if they didn't know specifically JT, maybe they definitely knew that Garrett Green probably wasn't going to win this. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot you could read into that, but I would probably agree with you that tells you that they knew something down the road, and that was probably JT was coming to West Virginia.
Now, Green played pretty well in the spring game. Shaky that first half, but he shook it off, and
he's going to control his adrenaline, man. He lets it take over when he comes out for that first series, man. Once he settles down, he's fine, but man, he's all over the place when he first comes out there. He's jacked.
is kind of like the opposite of Skylar Howard. You remember how Skylar Howard, he would start slow, and then when somebody needed to hit him, and once somebody
Yeah.
hit him,
He was
Skylar Howard
no,
got,
he didn't start slow. He started asleep until a hit woke him up.
yeah. And sometimes I wonder if the offensive line didn't just say, we're going to let him by this time.
Yeah, he's still back there sleeping, guys. Let's let him get him. Time to wake up, Skylar. Come on, man.
Another overlooked aspect. We don't often talk about special teams, but
Yep.
we recruited specifically a kickoff specialist. And because we were kicking the ball out of bounds way too much. We were kicking the ball.
It was crazy. I've never seen anything like that.
And that's been like 3 years running. It's like things become
I think
trend.
it's 2 years running.
But we got a guy who doesn't kick the ball out of bounds very often, and we got a guy who kicks the ball into the end zone at like 30% more than the best kicker on our roster prior to his arrival.
I was about to say, man, the past couple of years, touchbacks were like, oh, that was a touchback. And that should be a normal thing instead of, like one touchback every 3 games.
Yeah. Well, I remember a couple of times when we
frustrating.
Called a timeout when we should call a timeout, and the crowd goes wild.
Yeah.
And then we kick a touchback and the crowd goes wild. And it's like, man, these are not the things we should be cheering for.
Yeah, that's not normal.
And I don't know if he's going to punt right off the bat, but this Oliver Straw kid, it's got a boot, man.
Oh, man. It's like a sling. It's like he's got a slingshot in his leg, and all you got to do is let it loose, and it's gone.
So I think on the whole, special teams is also going to perform better. Go from sort of like the B-, C+ that you'd give them last year to even an A-, B+ would be a significant improvement. And flip the field by 5 to 7 yards. That makes a difference. Inches matter, and yards definitely matter.
That's what they were talking about for the spring game. They noticed a lot more touchbacks. And I know the spring game doesn't have the magnitude and the physicality of a regular season, but for a touchback, you can actually measure that in a spring game because it's basically the same. He's just kicking the ball as hard as he can. I mean, that's in any condition. Doesn't matter whether the other team is tackling or not, or how long they let you run or whatever. He was kicking touchbacks in the spring game. That is a good sign, and it will translate into the regular season. And I'm happy about that because whenever I did my preview for the Minnesota bowl game, I said, guys, we're going to lose, and it's not going to be close. All right? Number one, their defense was better than ours, and I knew it. Number two, they were great at flipping the field. We were horrendous at flipping the field. And that's exactly what happened in the bowl game. They were able to flip the field. I mean, the final score was 18-6. So it's not like they blew us out. But if you watch the entire game, we didn't have a chance. We were never in that football game. And it was because of that statistic right there.
Yeah, I mean, because we did that, Minnesota played Minnesota football.
Exactly. We played right into their hands. It was a mismatch right off the bat because of that statistic.
Yep. Agreed. But so I really don't hate where our team is at. I know we have a lot of skeptical fans who are like, these guys are talking to me. I hear them, but I'm skeptical. I'm going to be skeptical. That's fine. Be skeptical until it happens.
Yep.
But I'm taking my cue. When I interviewed Wolfman for my article, I told him straight up. I said, one of the things that I really respect about you, man, is that you kind of embody the Mountaineer attitude. And the Mountaineer attitude is, people have been dissing and doubting and overlooking the contributions that West Virginia has made to the nation and the contributions that West Virginians have made to the nation, and overlooking us as a state. for years and years. I mean, right now,
Even the success that West Virginia's had it's like doesn't get recognized at all.
yeah, it was an accident, broken
Yeah.
clock, or broken clock sort of theory, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I'm down here in Atlanta, and I'm working for a pretty big law firm, and the friend of mine is managing partner at one of the top 50 law firms in the country, in the Atlanta office.
You're in Atlanta? I didn't know that, dude. I'm in Liberty, South Carolina.
So you're what, like
an hour from you? I'm a friggin' hour from you, up 85.
And I'm North Atlanta too, actually.
Yeah. Honestly, I thought you were in West Virginia, the state.
No,
I really did.
We moved down here because of family reasons. But
yeah, economy for us, it's not good up there.
But graduated law school, West Virginia. But we've got it's just that that attitude, like in life, West Virginians love the adversity, right?
Oh yeah.
Virginians are like, doubt me, whatever. I'll shove it in your face and I won't think twice about it.
That's the embodiment of my YouTube channel right there, man.
I'll drive 85 miles an hour in the snow on the highway and not give one crap about it. That's the attitude of a Mountaineer.
Yeah.
But we see some adversity on the football field, and we're like, we got Coach Brown, and we're not giving him the benefit of the doubt. We're not saying, hey, Coach Brown knows he's faced adversity too. You think he doesn't know that? You think he's blind to that fact? Let him embody the West Virginia attitude. We've got adversity. Our own fans are doubting us. Give him the chance to be a West Virginian and prove it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, well, here's the thing. Okay. The biggest difference from last year to this year is quite simply, we're going to have an offensive coordinator, guys. It is that simple. I promise you, it is that simple. We've had a defense under Neil Brown. He's tried calling the offense himself, and he tried handing it off to an inexperienced guy who tried his best, did the best he could, but, just couldn't call a proper Power 5 offense. Okay? Tried, we failed. Finally, we have a real proven offensive coordinator in Morgantown. We've already had the pieces. The offensive line got better and better and better last year progressively. Look at our running back situation, probably one of the best in the Big 12. Our wide receivers are talented, a little young, but, man, they can go toe-to-toe with any secondary in the nation. Biggest difference is our play calling. Offensive coordinator Graham Harrell. We're going to be putting up a ton of points this year, guys.
And don't forget, by the way, that, the team likes each other. They're going to play for each other. And with that comes healthy competition. The defense now, look, defer every time. West Virginia is going to defer. Watch it. I don't think they take the offense. Anytime they win the toss, they're going to defer every time this year. I'm calling that too right now. 100% of the time they win the toss, they will do it. And the defense is going to start off strong. The defense is going to go with a stop. They're going to march off the field and say, what? To their offense. Healthy competition. Then the offense is going to go out with the Graham Harrell attitude. We're going to score every time we get on the field. And they're going to score. And they're going to go to the defense and be like, what? Top that.
Exactly.
They're going to be competing with each other instead of just having one of the two units hold up the whole team.
And it's not – okay, so it's an extreme that our offense has been in. Not only have we not been able to score, but we haven't even been effectively able to flip the field, grind clock, stuff like that. I think this year, even maybe in a game where our offense is a little off and they're not scoring, a crap ton of points, I still think they're going to be able to go out there and do their job and run some clock and flip the field. Little things like that have not been going in our favor is going to be a big deal this year.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely
because everybody has an off game. It happens. They're not going to be perfect every game. But here's the thing. If you can raise your bottom for when you do have a bad game, then that means a bad game's not not all that bad. Just means you were off, not as good as you usually are. But you're not terrible like the off games that we had last year offensively. When we were bad, we were bad. This year, I think when our offense is quote bad, still not going to be all that bad. I still think we'll be able to move the ball on opposing defenses and make them sweat instead of, oh man, this offense is terrible. All we got to do is score, I don't know, 3 or 4 touchdowns and we got in the bag. Last year, that's all the opposing offenses had to do. 3 or 4 touchdowns and, pretty much had the game.
Well, in fact, I'm just looking at it real quick, and we gave up 30 points or more 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So basically, teams only scored 4 touchdowns on us 4 times.
Did we ever give up 40? Was it one time?
One time. Yeah, I think
that was Kansas State.
No, Baylor.
Baylor. Okay, yeah. That's what I thought. That's pretty good defense.
Yeah, and Baylor, they were firing on all cylinders that day and at that time in the season. They played pretty well last year.
If you had that defense with the offense we had under Holgorsen, nobody's going to beat West Virginia, because whenever we had Holgorsen, we had to score at least 40 points or we were toast, because our defense was like cheddar cheese or hot butter, whatever you want to call it. Everybody got through. It was like playing offense against air.
I've been saying that, man. Like, you look back at the Holgorsen offenses, and we're top 10, top 15 pretty much every season but 1 or 2.
Yep.
But the defense is bottom 20 every season. Tony Gibson ran them. They had like the year we went 10-2 or 10-3 with Skylar Howard at the helm. The defense actually played really well that year.
That was a flawed 10-win season, though, because the 2 teams that were legitimately good that year, we got beat. I think it was Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. And I warned West Virginia fans. This was before I had a YouTube channel, though. But I still talked to people. I said, we're going to get waxed by Miami, because that's it's misleading. After that season, I was actually saying that Holgorsen should have been fired, because the talent that we had, we shouldn't have been a shaky 10-win team, because we just had too much talent that year. Sure, we got a 10-win season, but we weren't a very good 10-win team. That's the best way I can put it.
No, that's fair. But I will say this. Last year, I would have loved to have Skylar Howard on the team.
Yeah.
I was like many fans, I was hard on him when he was here, just because there were things that, so much moxie that guy had, so much character, so much like desire to win. He was a winner.
If he could get rid of committing a turnover at the most inopportune time, he would have been an amazing quarterback. That was the only hiccup. Like that fumble against Oklahoma State, that replays in my head over and over and over and over. Just stupid little things like that drove you crazy. But the overall picture of Skylar Howard, he's actually a pretty good quarterback at West Virginia.
Yeah, the thing that frustrated me the most was actually the overthrows. Like, guys, he threw it. Long bomb. We're like, oh God, watch out in the first row of the stands, because here it comes.
Yep.
And it kind of made me laugh whenever, he went over to play in the Japanese Football League and won a couple championships. Completed like 80% of his passes, and I'm like, the dude's wearing jetpacks over there. I
know, right?
Or did he just finally start figuring out how to drop it in the bucket instead of? The problem is his long balls sailed and like they never fell.
Exactly. They just kept going. Man, we've been running an hour 19. It doesn't feel like it. I want to do one more thing before we get out of here. Kind of related to the title. I really do feel like the Backyard Brawl is tilting in the favor of West Virginia. A combination of what's happened to West Virginia and what's happened to Pitt as well. I think West Virginia is going to have an offense, something that they haven't had the past 3 years. Plain and simple. West Virginia has not had an offense the past 3 years. Our defense is going to be as good, if not better, than what it was last year. The thing with Pitt was, their offense was probably going to be right at the same level as ours. Losing Jordan Addison, not good. That's bad. And then I'm hearing a lot from Pitt fans, including Talkus Pitt. I see in the chat, bud. Keaton Slovis did not look good at all in their spring game. So will he know the offense well enough whenever the backyard brawl rolls around? I know Pitt's going to have a great defense. We're going to have a great defense. So I do think it's going to come down to the offense. I like our chances much, much better. Whenever I first made the bet against Pitt, I was really Talkus Pitt. I was really 50-50. Hopefully West Virginia wins. I'm super confident now. I'm going like 75, 80%.
Yeah, I mean, I still think it will be a close game. One score decides it. I'm pretty confident that we can pull it out and that we will pull it out. But I don't know that I'm not the 75 to 80%. I think that's an early test. If we can beat it by a couple scores, though, I think we start out 5-6-0, something like that, before we really start getting into the meat of the schedule.
I haven't started saying this till this Jordan Addison thing came up. And there's still a small chance that he stays at Pitt. You never know. But if that happens, I do have West Virginia winning by 10 to 13 points. All right. 2 scores. Still pretty close, but 2 scores. Now, if Jordan Addison stays at Pitt, I think it's going to be a much closer game. I still like West Virginia because I trust that defense so much now. Like, I have no doubt, no waver in the defense. Our offense was atrocious last year. We would commit turnovers at the stupidest, possible time you could think of. Bad field position, our own, I don't know, I'll say 30, 25-yard line. And somehow the defense went out there and kept the other offense from scoring. So my faith in the defense is unwavering.
Well,
it's the offense that I think is just going to be it's going to be extremely better this year.
How good, and I don't know this off the top of my head, and I know we had the Pitt show last week or the week before that I wasn't able to be on, but how good is Pitt's secondary?
It's their weakness.
Okay. So
front
seven
is their strength.
They masked that with pressure up front, right?
Right.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought and the impression that I had. And if that's the case, I might like our chances even more, because one thing that JT Daniels does exceedingly well is get the ball out real quick.
That, and we're going to say it again, all 5 of our starting offensive linemen are back. So they're not, Pitt's probably going to send, 6, 7, stack the box, probably fairly often. So there's going to be some guys sneak through. But I think the offensive line will hold what they need to hold, and then the quick release of JT Daniels. And it's going to make those linebackers think twice, whenever he starts getting the ball out and a wide receiver chunks at 20, 25 yards.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine this, right? 2 running backs, 2 tight ends, 1 wide receiver. No wide receivers in that set, right? Lynn J motions out to the slot last second. Snap the ball. Linebackers are, 2 of the linebackers are sent up with the defensive line. They've got 4 to 6 in the backfield. Who's covering Lynn J. Dixon? Nobody. Give Lynn J. Dixon space, touchdown. No doubt.
Lynn J. Dixon is 3 to 4 tenths on the 40-yard faster than Letty Brown. People that don't understand that is a lot faster. Letty Brown tested as the slowest running back at the combine whenever he tested. So that's actually a testament on how good West Virginia was able to use him. He was not a fast dude, but we game planned around him so well. Well, now we're actually going to have the speed. And of course, we'll still game plan correctly around our running backs, but we'll have actual speed with our running backs. It's going to be insane. And plus, what we were talking about the spring game, the offensive line giving that 2-3 yard buffer right off the bat. I'm actually more excited about a running game. I really am. It's going to take off this year.
Yeah, I like where we at. But Pitt, they're not going to get 2 or 3 yard push every down or even half the downs against Pitt. They'll get it
No,
sometimes.
no. You're right.
They'll get it sometimes. I mean, it's strength against strength. I think our offensive line is sort of a hidden strength of the team this year. Their defensive line is a known strength of the team.
Yep. If JT can test that secondary, it'll pull the numbers in our favor to where we can run the ball because those linebackers aren't going to be cheating up on the line.
Yeah, and then we just start bouncing to the outside and let speed do its work.
Hey, and don't be surprised if we start seeing that jet sweep like we saw in the early Dana Holgerson era with Tavon Austin come back. Graham Harrell likes to run that as well, so look out for that.
Yeah, we tried it some last year, but they always knew when we were trying it because
he didn't give the right looks. Our offensive coordinator, bless his heart, it's not that he called bad plays. He didn't know how to fool the defense on his calls. It's like he had tendencies that he couldn't shake. He could not do the things that he did. He was set in his way. So, it is what it is. Graham Harrell is a lot better at disguising. A lot better.
Yeah. Well, he knows the importance of it too.
Exactly.
But yeah, man, I'll let you rest your voice. Have a good weekend, and we'll see everybody next Friday.
And I appreciate everybody hanging out with us for an hour and freaking a half, man. We got long-winded, but I was having fun and it didn't seem like it took that long. But yeah, same time, same place. Next Friday night, 8 p.m. I'll probably be here. Travis will probably here, and Mark will probably here. Maybe we'll line up a guest. I know during the regular season we're going to have guests for whatever team West Virginia is playing. Like on an Oklahoma week, we'll have an Oklahoma guest. So y'all start getting geared up for that. That's going to be a fun back and forth for the regular season. But for now, guys, that's it. And we'll see you next weekend at 8 o'clock on Friday here at the Voice of College Football West Virginia channel.
All right.